I'm Tracy Z, and I'm getting ready to add this new video to the How to Calculate Cash Flows training. So for all of you in the training, I'm excited to have you take a look at this new strategy. I'm also going to share it to our subscribers on our YouTube channel and also at noteinvestor.com blog. It's kind of a sneak peek, if you will, to how the How to Calculate Cash Flows training works, so people can get an idea of how the step-by-step walkthroughs work. I love this strategy because sometimes you just have a seller that says no to a discount. You can describe time value of money till you're blue in the face. So an alternative to that is to offer to buy half the number of the remaining payments for half the remaining balance. So let's take our example of a $100,000 principal balance note at 10% interest rate on the note with 30 years or 360 months of payments at $877.57. What we're going to do is take that remaining balance of $100,000 and divide it by 2. So half the balance is $50,000, and we're going to offer to pay $50,000 for half the remaining payments. So the remaining payments are 360 divided by 2 is 180. So the offer is $50,000 for the next 180 monthly payments of $877.57. So to the seller, they're saying, hey, I'm going to sell half of my balance, half of my payments for half the balance amount. And for an investor, we're thinking, well, what is the yield? Of course, that looks like a very attractive offer to the seller. Now, some of you might have seen this strategy before. It's also called a split funding. I've heard it called a no discount partial. I've heard it called half the payments for twice the yield. So let's take a look at how these numbers really work, because it's a really cool strategy. So before we get started on the walkthrough of how these numbers work, I just want to mention that this information is provided for educational purposes only. So myself and the publisher are not soliciting investment funds, and this is not intended as legal, financial, or tax advice. This investment strategy might not be suitable for your situation, and of course always consult with a competent attorney, financial advisor, and/or a tax accountant for your protection. So now that we have those common sense disclaimers out of the way, let's walk through this transaction on the calculator. So again, to reiterate, we've got 180 payments at $50,000 pay price. So we're going to put $50,000 as our PV, or an investment amount. We're going to solve for the yield, or I. We have a term of 180 months, or N. The payment is $877.57, and there's no future value. It's just equal monthly payments. And when we put it into our chart, so we have easy reference for our calculation, we see we've got $50,000 in the PV. We're going to solve for I there in the yellow. The payment amount is $877.57, N is 180, future value is 0. So let's go ahead and pull up the HP12C and see if we pay $50,000, or half the balance, for half the remaining payments, what will our yield be? So go over here to the HP12C, we're going to type in 50, change sign, present value. We're going to skip over I because we're going to solve for that last. 877.57 PMT, 180 goes into N, 0 goes into future value, or just leave it blank. And now we're going to press I, and we're going to solve for the interest rate. Now it's going to come back with a rate per month, and we'll times it by 12 to get our annual rate. So the HP12C is running, and we come up with 1.67, or if we carry it out 3 digits, 1.665. So if we take that number and we times it by 12, we get 19.98. So the yield is 19.98, almost 20%. Now remember, the interest rate on the note was 10%, but by dividing the balance in half and paying that for the half the remaining payments, we're getting almost a double yield. We're getting 20% instead of 10. And the seller is very happy because they are getting the $50,000. Now, here's another interesting way to do it. This doesn't work just on 50-50. This works also on a 25-25. So let's take an example where we do 1/4 of the payments for 1/4 of the balance. So we're going to divide by 4 now instead of divide by 2. So we're going to buy 90 payments for $25,000. So 100,000 divided by 4 is 25,000, and 360 divided by 4 is 90 payments. So now in our present value, we'll have 25,000. We're going to solve for I still. The term is 90. The payment stays the same, and the future value stays the same. So in our chart now, the things that have changed is the PV, 25,000, and we're going to solve for I, and N has also changed for the payments. So I'll come over here to our calculator and we'll just override 25,000 into the change sign present value. We're going to skip over I. Our payment is already in there of 877.57. You don't have to do this step, but we'll just show 877.57 as the payment, 90 as the N. And now we're going to solve again for I. We're going to say, what is our yield if we pay $25,000 for the next 90 payments? Now it comes back with 3.325, and if you times that by 12, you get 39.91. So we'll just do that. We'll go enter and 12 times, and we see we get 39.906 or 39.91 when you round to do 2 decimals. So wow, our yield even went up more when we did this 25-25 over the 50-50. So it's a really great strategy. And I encourage you to take a look at using that, especially when you have a seller that just won't take a discount. Now, we all know that with the time value of money, when we're paying this pay price, say $25,000 for 90 payments or $50,000 for 180 payments, that there really is a discount compared to the face value of the note. But you'd have to understand time value of money to understand that. And unfortunately, some sellers don't, no matter how many times you try to explain that to them. So I find that this creates a win-win situation for them and for us, because then when that partial's over, say in 180 months or in 90 months, then you can go back in and buy the remaining number of payments. And so they get to retain some of the future interest earnings, and you get to purchase the upfront payments, which are most valuable and a safer investment, generally speaking. So in our training, we always head on over to T-value to also calculate these same cash flows. So I'm going to pull up T-value. I'm going to do the same transaction. And I'm also going to back up my slides here. So with T-value pulled up, we're going to come over to our loan event, and this is the same as our PV number, and we're going to put in $50,000. And there's one of those. And we'll come down to the payment, and the payment amount is $877.57. And we're going to purchase 180 of those. Now we pop up here to nominal annual rate. We put in a U for unknown, and we press calculate to solve for that. So we get that same 19.98. So that is the return if you invest $50,000 for 180 payments of $877.57. So now let's go to the next example, which was the $25,000. So we come over here, we're going to change 50, to 25,000. And the payment amount's still $877.57, but we're only buying 90 of those payments. So we'll come up here to nominal annual rate, put in the U for unknown, and press calculate. And we can see that we get the same answer there in T-value of 39.906, or rounded up to 39.91%. Now, as mentioned before, the nice thing about T-value is you can actually pop over to the amortization schedule and see how each month the payment is getting applied to interest and principal, either on the full balance or that partial balance that we just calculated. So thanks for joining me in this walkthrough of how to calculate the 50-50 partial or the 20-25 partial. And if you are interested in learning more, this is just one of over 50 videos that we have in how to calculate cash flows training. So I invite you to take a look at that. It's a very economical training. It's under $100, and it teaches you not just about how to buy real estate notes, but also how to run calculations on any cash flow. It really helps you apply the time value of money to everyday life as well as investing. So again, thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you in the next video.